Hi everyone! We are here with part 2 of the STEAL A BRAINROT, the Brainrot Curse. Be sure to watch first STEAL A BRAINROT, the Brainrot Curse part 1 before watching this story. Quick recap of part 1. Steve was a new player to STEAL A BRAINROT when strange things started happening. He told his friends about it, but they didn't believe him. While Steve was collecting proof that the brainrot creatures were coming into the real world, he got caught by one of them and was taken to the digital STEAL A BRAINROT world, where he is now stuck forever. The Brainrot Curse Part 2, Steve's friends heard about his disappearance and remembered all the strange things he had told them. Jake, Mike, and Tommy started to wonder if maybe Steve had been telling the truth all along. What if those creatures were real? Mike said quietly as they sat in the cafeteria. What if something in that game actually made them appear in real life? That's impossible, Jake said. But he didn't sound as confident as usual. Is it? Tommy asked. I mean, Steve had video evidence of weird stuff happening in the game. And now he's missing. That's a pretty big coincidence. The three friends decided they needed to investigate. If something in the game had caused Steve to disappear, maybe they could figure out what happened to him. Jake's discovery. That evening, Jake logged into Steve's private server using the password Steve had shared with them weeks ago. The server was still active, and Jake could see that there were now 3 other players online. But just like Steve had said, there were no visible avatars anywhere on the map. Jake's username appeared in the server, but the other 3 player slots just showed dots. Jake walked his avatar over to the conveyor belt and saw a tung-tung sahur moving slowly along it. He remembered Steve saying this was the first creature that had talked to him. Jake reached out to click on the tung-tung sahur. Immediately, a voice came through his headphones. "Leave me alone, or I will chase you." But then Jake heard something else. A second voice, much fainter and more distant. It sounded scared and desperate. "Help me! Please help me! I'm trapped in here with them!" Jake's blood went cold. The second voice sounded exactly like Steve. Jake quickly took a screenshot and then closed the game. His hands were shaking as he called Mike and Tommy. "Guys," Jake said when they answered, "I think Steve is somehow trapped in the game. And I think we need to help him before we get trapped too." At that moment, Jake saw glowing eyes watching him outside his window. While Jake was still on the phone, he said, Guys, I'm starting to see what Steve was talking about. I see a giant tung-tung in the forest on the other side of the street. I think once I leave my home, I'll get chased by the brainrots." The plan. That night, the friends came up with a detailed plan to stop this. Everything was planned carefully, since they might only have one chance to bring Steve back. They also tried to involve the police, but the officers didn't believe their story. The police even became suspicious of them, since they told them everything. So the police were no longer an option to solve this digital prison created by the STEAL A BRAINROT game. Jake went back home, but he heard noises outside all night long and scratching on his door and windows. He could barely sleep because he was scared the brainrots would get inside to catch him. The next morning, the friends came to Jake's home to go to school together. They had to stay together to avoid any one of them being taken by a brainrot. Once at school, they explained their plan to each other again. Jake would be the bait after school, while his friends would keep an eye on him from a distance. Tommy brought a taser to protect themselves from the brainrots. Mike set up some traps to catch the brainrot chasing Jake. "If everything goes according to plan, we can catch one and get some answers," Mike said. Jake gets captured. That evening after school, Jake was walking home. To their surprise, there wasn't a single brainrot to be seen. At that moment, they began to doubt themselves. Had Steve really been kidnapped by brainrots, or had something else happened to him? They all went home. But once Jake went inside his house and walked to the living room, he saw a giant tung-tung sahur on his sofa. Jake tried to run, but all the doors were magically closed. There was no way he could escape from the Tung Tung Sahur. A couple of hours later, Jake's parents came home. Their whole house was a mess. They started screaming for Jake and asking him to come downstairs. But they couldn't find him. Jake had been taken by the brainrots, trapped in the digital world. Jake was brought to the same place where Steve was. Steve was somewhat happy to see him. "Jake, what happened?" Steve asked. "We're now in the Steal a Brainrot game, Jake, but I'm not sure it's the same game. Here it looks different. There are different brainrots bringing real human people to their bases. The bases become unprotected every 2 minutes, and other brainrots come to steal us. Some brainrots bring new humans to the game from the real world. I think this game is called Steal a Human." Jake asked Steve in panic. "How can we leave this game?" Steve didn't know yet and replied, "I think we're stuck here forever. We can't do anything here." Jake said to Steve, "Hey Steve, I still have my cell phone, and I somehow still have an internet connection. We can ask for help?" Steve replied. Jake texted his friends that he was caught and stuck in the game with Steve. His friends asked him for every single detail and if there was a way to get him out. Jake couldn't give a clear answer about how they could get out, but the good part was they could stay in touch with each other until his phone battery died. Mike's bold move. Mike was the next one to join Steve's private server, doing the same as Jake had done before. Steve had told him in the past that after trying to buy a brainrot, it said he would be chased by it. Mike heard Jake and Steve screaming in the background. The next day, Mike disguised himself so the brainrots wouldn't recognize him. After school, Mike was walking home. He didn't see any brainrots yet until he was almost home. Then he saw in the distance the giant Tung Tung Sahur watching him from inside the forest. Instead of running away, Mike grabbed an axe and ran towards the Tung Tung Sahur. The brainrot didn't know what was happening and tried to run away from Mike. The brainrot seemed to know he wasn't safe in the real world. If something happened to him, he would feel the pain inside the digital world, or even vanish if something really serious happened to him. Mike was much faster and could get closer and closer to the Tung Tung Sahur. He managed to cut off the Tung Tung's legs with the axe. The Tung Tung Sahur was helpless. The interrogation Mike called Tommy, who had to come to the forest as fast as possible. They tied the Tung Tung with rope against a tree. They started threatening the Tung Tung Sahur with fire and the axe to get all their questions answered. Tung Tung Sahur warned them, "If I'm not back soon, all the brainrots will come to the real world searching for me. And some brainrots are so huge and mean that bad things could happen to the real world." Mike and Tommy thought this was a bluff. They really wanted answers about how to get their friends back. Tung Tung Sahur didn't answer that question. Or at least he kept telling them it was not possible to get humans back to the real world once they got trapped in the digital world. Tung Tung Sahur warned them once again, "Only 5 more minutes, and the real world is in huge trouble if you don't let me go." Mike and Tommy looked at each other with expressions that showed they didn't believe a word Tung Tung Sahur was saying. The portal opens. But then suddenly, a big giant portal opened near Tung Tung Sahur. "If you don't let me go, this portal will stay open forever. I'm the only one who can close it," he said. Mike grabbed his firelighter. "Close the portal, or I will burn you down." Tung Tung Sahur said he couldn't. Meanwhile, brainrots were starting to come through the portal. The world was slowly becoming a place filled with brainrots. Everyone was running and panicking. Nobody was safe now, even people who had never played Steal a Brainrot before. To be continued